Hello everyone, welcome back to the Trumpet Daily. By now you know all about America's porous southern border, and you know that the influx of unaccompanied minors is primarily coming from Central America, which means that before these illegals make it to America, they have to cross Mexico's southern border first. Today we're going to see how this assault on America's border is happening largely because of the collusion that exists between the governments of Guatemala, Mexico, and the United States.
This gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world.
And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
Last week, a CNN reporter filed a report from the Guatemala-Mexico border, the southern border of Mexico. We've heard so much about the northern border that enters into the United States. But he filed this report showing how a lot of these illegal immigrants that are coming from Central America, of course, they have to pass through Mexico's southern border first. And he pointed out in his report about just how easy it is for these immigrants to make it into Mexico. He said there were border agents all around, but that they were welcoming them into the nation of Mexico, and the Guatemala border police were encouraging these immigrants to cross into Mexico and to make this long journey to the United States. I thought I'd begin today's program by just showing you that report that, as I said, was filed by a CNN correspondent.
This is the Suchiate River, which separates Mexico from Guatemala. Right now we're in Guatemala, the westernmost part of the country. Across the river, the southernmost part of Mexico. And you could see throughout this river, there are rafts of people who are trying to get across the border, and they're doing it very easily. This is very unlike the border going to the United States, where you have to be secret about it. I want to give you a look here to give you an idea of how open this is. There are police here. There are police all over here, and no one minds the people are going across the river from here in Guatemala into Mexico. You can see this family of three, a mother, father, and their little boy. They told me a short time ago they're getting ready to go on this raft. The rafts are made of these huge inner tubes, and they're getting ready to go across from here in Guatemala into Mexico. They're hoping also to get into the United States. This river is active from sunrise to sunset, and in addition to all the police being here not caring that people are crossing from here in Guatemala to Mexico, what's really amazing is about a mile in this direction is the official border station. The official border station is right down there, so even though the Border Patrol people for Guatemala and Mexico work over there, they don't seem to care either. This is just a very active business, and the going rate right now for crossing is the equivalent of $1.30. And this is the family we just met, the little child and his parents. The man in the red shirt with the stick, he's the pilot of this raft, and he's the guy who just got the $1.30. Typically what happens, they will go to the other side, they will go into Mexico. There are taxis and vans and also bicycle taxis on the other side, which will take them in a lot of cases to a nearby city in Mexico called Tapachula. And Tapachula, they stay in shelters and then try to figure out where to go from there. But it is a long way from Tapachula, Mexico, the southern part of Mexico, right near here, to the United States. It could take them weeks to get there, if they get there successfully. And that's an open question. The police are not only friendly here, they're actually encouraging us to go for a ride in one of the rafts. They're saying, yeah, go into Mexico. So we are. And this is our skipper.
Peluco.
This is Peluco. Peluco, we paid him $1.30 already to go on the raft with him. Peluco, is this a fun job? Divertido?
That's fun.
Fun? Fácil? Easy?
Easy job.
You like taking people into Mexico?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, well, people leave Guatemala, come with Peluco, he takes them to Mexico, and then if they succeed, they end up in the United States. But if you do this in the Rio Grande in Texas, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You can't do it in front of cops, but here with Peluco, you can do it in front of everybody. Peluco is now taking us into Mexico, but unlike most of the people on this river, we're going to head back into Guatemala and spend the next couple of hours watching people continue to cross this river, heading north.
So if you thought the border at America's southern frontier was wide open, you need to go down to the southern border of Mexico's and see just how wide open, as he explained there in his report. I mean, that's where it all begins for many of these immigrants. Of course, they've got a long journey that continues once they get into Mexico, that involves getting on freight trains or death trains, as they've been called at times, because of how dangerous the journey is. And of course, the ones that are younger, the children, the unaccompanied minors, are oftentimes paired with human smugglers that bring them across that 1,500-mile journey all the way across Mexico in the hope that they can then cross the Rio Grande and get into the United States. Last week, there was a report that really didn't receive much coverage at all, but it was about the Mexican government, the Guatemalan government, and an agreement that they made between the two to make this illegal journey from all of these illegal aliens coming from Guatemala and also Honduras and El Salvador and so on, to make this journey for them just a little bit easier. As I said, it was ignored for the most part by the major media. Let me just give you a few quotes from this particular report. This is from the Examiner.com. Mexico made deal, it says there, to send more illegal aliens to the U.S. It says the Southern Border Program, this is from July 9th, the Southern Border Program to improve passage will provide for more border checkpoints along Mexico's border with Guatemala and offer more protection and even emergency medical care to those making their way north. The illegal aliens will receive a so-called regional visitor's card, according to El Universal. Now think about this. Mexico actually has on the books, it has very strict laws regarding immigration and crossing their borders and so on. And what would it be like if the situation was a little bit different? If all of these illegals, let's say, were flooding into New Mexico or Mexico City or into Monterrey or one of the big cities in Mexico, as opposed to just passing through on the way to the United States? I don't think Mexico would be quite so eager to welcome them in. As I said, their laws are quite strict. Look at the example again of that U.S. Marine that accidentally crossed into Mexico just a few months ago. And he's still in jail today. He accidentally crossed in with guns in his truck, and he's in prison. Pretty strict laws. Except when the people coming across Mexico's borders are just passing through on their way to the United States. In that case, they want to do everything they can to make it easier for this flood of immigrants to make that journey. The article continues, the program will also give special protection and even financial assistance to unaccompanied minors now pouring across our border. It says, of course, these efforts, chiefly by the Mexican government, will only increase the number of illegal aliens coming to this country by the thousands. Now, it says, on a daily basis. I mean, how can anyone look at this as a friendly act by Mexico? The Mexican government is there actively working to increase the flow of immigrants coming through to the United States. I mean, no nation, if you think about what's happening, and it's all, I mean, the final destination is America, and no nation can sustain this. How could a nation survive when it's numbers like this, tens of thousands of immigrants just flooding in? And being encouraged to do so by the Mexican government, by the Guatemalan government, and really, if truth be told, by the American government too. All three working together, as this article brings out, in collusion. It says the official announcement only confirms what many of us have known all along. The current chaos on the border, which the Obama administration has sympathetically and dishonestly characterized as a humanitarian crisis, only exists due to collusion between the governments of Mexico, Guatemala, and likely the United States. I mean, all of this is just going to provide further incentive for people to make that journey, for people to flood into the United States. And really, it's more than just a crisis at this point. It's more like an invasion. Again, how is a country going to sustain this level of illegal immigration? There's no signs that it's going to slow down. As Peggy Noonan said last week, no one who wants to help has the authority to do so, and no one with the authority to do so is helping The ones in authority don't want to do anything about it. The regular people, like you, that want to do something can't, because they lack the authority. And so here are the leaders just stepping aside and letting it happen. If you look at the few small measures that have been taken, for instance, the president's request for the $3.7 billion package to address the crisis, that spending request is not designed to reverse the flood or to even reduce the flow of illegal immigrants. It's just there, or it's just there to manage this crisis, to make the transition into the United States a little bit smoother. That's all that it's about. Most of the money, this is quoting Jay Johnson from Homeland Security, most of the money would go to, as he said, care, feeding, and transportation costs of unaccompanied children and family groups. And even the cost that would appear to be for security in that $3.7 billion that the president has requested, it really is going to help them get established. The cost, let's say, to provide them with lawyers so that they can avoid deportation. That's all in the spending request, and nothing really to speak of in there about controlling or reducing the flow or sending the illegals back home. Nothing like that. This is from the Washington Examiner. I don't have the quote on the slide, but it says, meanwhile, the one thing Mr. Obama could do, push hard to change the law forbidding the quick return of young immigrants from non-contiguous countries, is not on the table. I mean, this is the one change that he could make, but it's not on the table. Some hope the president would include a legislative fix in this spending request, but he didn't. He didn't, and that's telling, isn't it? Because for all the tough talk that politicians can sometimes make, the actions, they don't back up that tough talk. And people in Central America can see that, which is why they're happily crossing into Mexico and getting on those dangerous freight trains with those dangerous smugglers in hope that they can make it through to America. Because once they get here, they have it made. They're not going to be turned back. That one law, or the loophole, whether it's the 2012 law or going back to the 2008 law, that could be corrected quite easily. There's certainly popular support for it in the United States, all across the nation. But the goal here is to just manage the crisis. That's it. To manage it. Notice what Charles Krauthammer wrote last week, July 10th. He says, why do they come? The administration pretends it's because of violence and poverty. And he says, nonsense. When has there not been violence and poverty in Central America? Yet this wave of children has doubled in size in the past 2 years and is projected to double again by October. See, it's not sustainable. Not at these figures, not at this increase. He continues, the new variable is Mr. Obama's unilateral and lawless June 2012 order essentially legalizing hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants who came here as children. He says, finally, message received in Central America. True, this executive order doesn't apply to those who came after June 15th, 2007, but the fact remains that children coming across now are overwhelmingly likely to stay. See, they know that they're likely to stay, irrespective of what the law actually says. They know that they're likely to stay, and the facts and the figures from the Border Patrol back that up. As those sent back, I mean, the numbers are in sharp decline, even as we have this explosive amount of illegal activity there at America's southern border. If you put yourself in their shoes, poor people from Nicaragua or Guatemala, they're receiving nothing but positive signs, encouragement, in fact, whether it's coming from the Guatemalan government or the Mexican government or the government of the United States. That's why there is currently an all-out assault on America's southern border. Now, some are calling it a humanitarian crisis, and in many ways it is a crisis. But it's important to note that it's entirely man-made. It's because of men that we have this crisis. Step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture as brought out by Peggy Noonan. She says, all this gives normal people a feeling of besiegement and foreboding. Is a nation without borders a nation? That's a good question. If we don't have borders, if we can't secure our borders, I mean, do we really have a nation? That's what many Americans are worried about. She says, America is the house that is both falling apart and under new stress. Those living within it, those most upset by what they're seeing, know America has big problems. Unemployment, low workforce, participation, a rickety physical infrastructure, an unsound culture, poor public education, and of course discord of all sorts, a lot of mad squirrels running around the attic. They know America can't pay the bills. They fear we're living on the fumes of greatness. They want us to be strong again. Watching our border collapse doesn't look like a harbinger of progress. The average American is disturbed. They know that we're running on fumes. Now, this is something we've been talking to you about for many months now, many years in fact. America's decline. And if anything should wake us up regarding what's happening and what's prophesied to happen, it should be this development. We have this booklet here titled Lawless, Why America is Losing Its Rule of Law. We talked about that last time we addressed this subject on the illegal immigration and just how it really highlights the lawlessness of our own nation. And then the nations around us too. You can add them to the mix. It's like a perfect storm. And there's no signs whatsoever that it's about to turn around or even to be reduced slightly. It's just going to increase. And it's because of this lawless spirit that you see in our society. The next issue of the Trumpet, this is the last one that we had printed, but the next issue of the Trumpet will go into this subject in greater detail, what's happening at America's southern border. So if you haven't gotten your free subscription to the Trumpet magazine, go ahead and sign up for that today, also at thetrumpet.com if you like. You can also call one of our operators to receive a free subscription if you like too. This other publication we produce weekly, this is the hard copy of the Trumpet Weekly, but this is produced each week and sent out to, I forget how many subscribers, 20,000, 30,000 or so, each week on Friday afternoon. And we email it to you free of charge at no cost or obligation to you. So to keep up to date, right up to date with what is happening in the news and to understand the prophetic significance, make sure that you subscribe to both, the Trumpet Weekly and also the Trumpet Magazine. And then don't forget about this free ebook that we're offering to you as well, Lawless, Why America is Losing Its Rule of Law. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on the Trumpet Daily.